You're the man. All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome in to the August 6th edition of the Batter Up podcast here on the Sports Insanity Network, sponsored by Halpern's Cards and Collectibles. Mike Rifkin, the Patch Man, coming at you. We're going to talk all things in the world of baseball. But, Patch, I need you to play one of the top moments in the 2023 Major League Baseball season.
Well, give me a moment to get it ready. I think we're going to see a YouTube clip within a YouTube stream. So hopefully
boom, mind blow. That's Inception.
Don't mind that audio is not synced up with video, but the greatest call I think this season has been set. So here we go.
Now Hosey and Anderson square off. They're fighting. They're swinging. Down goes Anderson. Down goes Anderson.
We'll leave it at that.
Tom Hamilton on the call for the Guardians radio network. That was a brawl between the Chicago White Sox and the Cleveland Guardians that really was our first brawl of this year. But the whole play really is random. Ramirez hits an RBI double with the Guardians on the board. He asks Tim Anderson to help him up. Anderson refuses. Words get said to one another. And the next thing you know, it's put him up. And then Jose Ramirez with a right cross knocks Tim Anderson down. Nothing yet from MLB on suspensions, but you can be assured those are coming. Ramirez said something very interesting after the game last night, saying Tim Anderson has, quote, disrespected the game for a long time. Very intriguing statement there from Jose Ramirez, who's still one of the more underappreciated players in all of baseball. But man, that was something that you don't get to see every day. But here we are. And there are no words to describe that.
They're really
pretty epic.
There really are.
In the moment, it was epic, and you just didn't expect it, Patch.
You didn't. It was like, all right, help him up, and then all of a sudden, it's like we're seeing the Rangers and the Blue Jays go at it, like Bautista did a couple of years ago, and then the only credit to this is that Bautista actually ate the right hand, stood up still, and continued, unlike Anderson, who went down.
The other part to that, and you're right, was Elvis Andrus, who's now on the White Sox, was there for that brawl as well with the Rangers and the Blue Jays. So we'll wait to see what Major League Baseball does, but the Jose Ramirez suspension is going to come at a crucial time for the Guardians, who are still in the race in the AL Central. A mere 4.5 games back of the Twins, but they're 3-7 in their last 10, including losing the last 2 to the White Sox. And the Twins have won 4 in a row. So this is going to have a major effect on the Guardians season. That's $1 in the swear jar for calling them the Indians, but we'll digress. More on the suspensions potentially later on next week's Batter Up or even SIP. But it's a big loss for the Guardians if Jose Ramirez has gone long term. Tim Anderson did not play this afternoon after getting rocked. So
the fact we got like a down goes Frazier type call is amazing.
Shout out Tom Hamilton.
Yeah,
that was the whole play is a phenomenal call.
It's probably the most exciting thing to happen in White Sox baseball recently.
It's the most fight the White Sox have shown all year.
And unfortunately, they took the L in that fight too.
Story of their season, but
Story of their life
that's
since
just
05.
so we had that go down. Gonna talk a little Mets, the embarrassment that keeps on going, some teams that are rolling, and we'll preview some of the bigger matchups this upcoming week in the world of Major League Baseball. Like I said, I'll open up with the Mets, despite opening up with the fight, because something made the rounds yesterday. And it was Steve Cohen's letter to Mets season ticket holders, acknowledging that this year has been disappointing, and he promises to work hard to field a competitive team in 2024. This is from the New York Post. Cohen, in the letter, which was obtained by the Post, also vowed to field a formidable team next season, even after expectations have dimmed due to the fact that the Mets have publicly stated they won't spend money in free agency this offseason in the same way they have the previous 2 years. So there's a couple. So here's the whole piece, and I'm quoting here. We added several key pieces to our team, but things have not turned out how we planned. You are rightfully disappointed, and so are we. This is not where we wanted to be in 2023. Our goal is to be a consistent contender. The only way to do this in a sustainable way is to build a pipeline of high-caliber talent in our farm system that will fuel our major league team for years to come, close quote. So there's a couple of ways to interpret this, and I'm going to do my best to go in the different directions we can on this. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to push Shohei Ohtani off to the side because I know that's where everyone wants me to go, or that's where everyone wants to talk about. He's not wrong when he says 2023 has been a disappointment. For Pete's sake, all you got to do is listen to an ESPN broadcast and they can tell you how disappointing the Mets have been. Or you can listen to WFAN. That's all true. But you have to think about the long-term game. And I think for the first time in Steve Cohen's ownership, he's thinking about the long-term game as opposed to buying a championship, which, let's be real honest here, buying a championship does not work. Not in Major League Baseball. The NFL, you could do it. The NBA, you could do it. The NHL, you could try to do it. It doesn't work in Major League Baseball because there are so many things that are unpredictable. Injuries, especially when you're talking pitching staff because of arms and things like that. Guys could be out 6 weeks with a hamstring. Guys can be out 4 weeks with this, with that. So the Mets went into this year with Justin Verlander and Max Scherzer, and they felt the two future Hall of Famers would be enough to put them over the top, along with bringing back Brandon Nimmo and Edwin Diaz and having a core with Francisco Lindor and Pete Alonso. Here's the fact: Jeff McNeil, who won the batting title last year, we'll get into that in a second. Justin Verlander misses the first month of the year because of a shoulder muscle thing that I don't know. So he misses the first month. That's part A. Part B, Max Scherzer never got going. He's been up, he's been down, he's been left, he's been right. But he never hit that stride. And I do think part of that was the 10-game suspension he had for sticky substance. I still wish baseball would define what that means. That's a whole nother conversation in this. But Scherzer, he's given up over 20 home runs. The win-loss record was there, but in games they needed him to pitch well, and he didn't. Think back to the start he made against the Yankees at Citi Field. He was given a lead, he coughed it up. Think to the Braves game he pitched in Atlanta. They gave him a lead, he couldn't hold it. Think back last year to the wild card game and to the Braves series last September. I was excited when the Mets signed Max Scherzer, just like I was excited when the Mets signed Pedro and when the Mets acquired Johan Santana. I know Max Scherzer's nearing the end, but it's still cool to say you had that guy on your team, and it's great for the immaculate grid. But it never worked. So when you trade off David Robertson and Max Scherzer says what he said, Max Scherzer sealed his own fate. Justin Verlander, I would have loved for Justin Verlander to be part of the 2024 New York Mets. But a deal came up that the Mets said, you know what? Godfather reference. Make me an offer I can't refuse. And you get the top two prospects from the Houston Astros. We get it. Let me phrase it. I get it. You're punting on 2023. So what does that mean? It means, to go to the Scherzer quote, not understanding why David Robertson was traded the Friday before the trade deadline when you had all this time remaining. This team didn't earn the right to wait for 4 or 5 days for a trade to happen. They didn't earn that right because they never put anything together. This is not the same team that played last year, despite the fact that it's predominantly the same roster. Check this out. Edwin Diaz's injury hurt this team massively because the World Baseball Classic just had to happen. But that's not the only reason this team isn't good. Starling Marte's not playing at the level he played at last year. Injuries have played a factor there too. Jeff McNeil's not competing for a batting title. He went from hitting 326 or 330 to hitting 250. Alonso's still hitting for power, but his average isn't up. Lindor's had a nice year, so I'm going to put him to the side for a second. The positives for this year, Nemo's had a nice year. Now it's all about the development of the young kids. It's development of Brett Beatty. It's the development of Francisco Alvarez. And how things have turned in that direction. Alvarez has been a stud. He's going to contend for Rookie of the Year this year. Brett Beatty, up and down. He's got to find himself again. You're going to have to play Mark Vientos now every day. And Met fans are clamoring for this. I'm not the only one. The old ops guy's clamoring for it, although he clamors for a lot of stuff.
No, he does.
He does. We're waiting on the Ronnie Mauricio call-up because I swear to Jeebus, to quote the great Homer Simpson, I don't want to have to watch Danny Mendick. These three players were in the Mets lineup today. Danny Mendick, DJ Stewart, who hit cleanup. Let me rephrase it. DJ Stewart was Pete Alonso's protection today. He played. Danny Mendick, DJ Stewart, and Rafael Ortega. And wouldn't you know it, the Mets lost today 2-0, making it 6 in a row. Those three guys had an integral part in today's loss. Let's go to the fifth inning. Bases loaded, 2 outs. Brandon Hyde goes to his lefty in the bullpen. Buck Showalter. I'm not going to pinch hit Starling Marte or Francisco Alvarez in this spot. I want DJ Stewart against the lefty. DJ Stewart grounds out. Rafael Ortega on a ball hit to center field, misjudges it, goes for a triple, winning run scores because the Mets lose 2-0. That's how the first run scores. Second run, Danny Mendick on a ground ball hit to him tries to turn 2 instead of getting the out at home plate, when he would have had James McCann dead to right. If you're going to punt on the year and give us a reason to watch and people a reason to go to the games, the young guys have to play. It's that simple.
It seems some of the players' names you just named, no offense to them, it sounds like they're names out of, if you were in 2045 in an MLB show season with your My Player. especially with the name Danny Mendick.
Listen, good player for the White Sox a couple of years ago. Hasn't played well as a Met. Not now. So now let's go to the pitching side. I'm not going to touch the bullpen because bullpens you're going to pluck with it all the time. I don't care. I care, but I'm not going to get into the whole thing. Rotation. Kodai Senga, he's a lock for next year. He's probably your number one unless you go out and do something. Jose Quintana's pitched really well despite not having a win yet. Right now, he's a lock to make this rotation next year unless you find a good trade. That leaves 3 spots open, 2 of which could be Tyler McGill and David Peterson. The rest of 2023 is an audition for those 2 guys. They pitch well, they'll have an opportunity to make the roster next year. They don't, we're going to see some action here. So that's the rotation. So now let's mold this into one giant feast in what it is. Steve Cohen in this said we're not going to spend like he has the past 2 years, which probably means the Mets aren't going to spend money on Shohei Ohtani. I know people are going to freak out over this, but I'm going to word this in 2 different ways. I think this is motivating Steve Cohen to maybe spend that money on Shohei Ohtani, and I wouldn't put it past him to rule him out. But Ohtani's going to sign, what, a $600 million contract, $650 million? He might sign the first billion-dollar contract in the history of baseball. I don't know.
In all of sports.
And I'm only using baseball as the example because that's what he plays. Well, and all those other leagues patch salary cap.
Well, no, unless you're a certain country overseas, we won't mention names that just throw away stupid money because, people don't like us when we use the SA word here on the internet.
Your hatred of Pretoria from Family Guy is totally noted.
Listen, I'm all for Rabonia from Futurama, so
here's the thing. You could take the $650 million that you were going to pay Shohei Ohtani, or the $600 million you were going to pay Shohei Ohtani, and you can spread that out, not to just 1 or 2 guys, but on 4, 5, 6 guys. On 4, 5, or 6 guys to help this team. Because let's be real honest here. Let's say it's $650 million for Shohei Ohtani. Pete Alonso needs an extension. He's up after next year. How about you take 150 to 200 million of that and give it to the first baseman? You need to fill out parts of your roster. Figure this out. Now let's go to the pitching side of it. Like I said, you have 2 guys now locked into this rotation pretty much for next year. Now, I'm going to say here, again, the line, won't spend money in free agency like they have the previous 2 years. There are a lot of guys you could sign for 1-year deals. Lance Lynn could be had on a 1-year deal. Lucas Giolito could be had on a 1-year deal. And those would be the 2 guys that intrigue me. Now, could you sign a Julio Urias to a 5-year deal? I wouldn't be opposed to that. Would I be opposed to them signing someone else to a 4 or 5-year deal? Aaron Nola, maybe? Okay, you can convince me on that. Or if you build up your farm system, it can not only help you in the development of your own players, you can use multiple assets in a trade. Mind-blowing. You can trade. Something the Mets don't know anything about because they blew it last year at the deadline. They blew it in the winter, but we'll digress. Call the White Sox to see if Dylan Cease is available this winter after they were listening at the deadline. Call a team like the Milwaukee Brewers to see if Corbin Burns could be had for the right price, especially if David Stearns is going to be named your president of baseball operations. Now, I know I'm living in a fantasy land of things because I'm just picking and choosing great names. But you can also get names that may or may not be available. You're going to check in. You got to better the roster. Now let's fast forward to this part. I already said Alonso's your first baseman. Should be for the long term. Jeff McNeil's the second baseman, in my opinion, for right now. Lindor's locked in at short, Beatty's at third. Let's go to the outfield. If McNeil's playing second, it means Ronnie Mauricio needs an opportunity in the left. Wait and see on it. Nemo's locked in center. Marte's got 2 years in right field. That leaves the curious bat of Mark Vientos, who could be the DH, could give you some time at first, could give you some time at third. But again, another option could be exploring trade offers. Maybe Seattle, who I'll talk about in a few minutes, would be willing to give up one of their young pitchers for a young bat. It's a process. And I think Steve Cohen is approaching this the right way. Does 2023 suck? 1,000%. It's worse than they thought that. It's worse when they thought the world was going to end in 2012. That's how bad this year has been for the Mets. But if you're a Met fan, you have the utmost confidence in this owner to get it right because he's one of us. He was a fan. He believes in this team. And we haven't had anyone who cares. The coupons couldn't care less. All I'm saying is, to quote the greatest American poet we've ever heard, Axl Rose. I know he said he needed 3 to 5 years was the goal. But all he's asking for is just have a little bit of patience. And to quote Axl Rose, all you need is just a little patience.
And to quote New York State Lottery's old commercial with the tiny old man dancing, all you just need is a little bit of luck.
Yeah, if you're a Met fan, you've never had luck in your life.
I mean, not since 86, but, you know.
You know what? That's true, but I was born after 86, so I don't recall those moments.
Just to think, you know, since the turn of the century and the millennium, only the Mets as the NL East have not won a World Series. They've made a World Series appearance.
Way to kick a man when he's down.
Oh,
jeez. And I thought I was the mean person in the network. Damn.
Listen, I'm that person that just gives that little zest. Just like I gave a zesty prediction last night for SummerSlam, and you know, I got like the dirty looks from the 4 of yous.
In my defense, I give most people dirty looks.
Understandable, but just, you know, understandable. But, you know, as my name said last night, the wise man, Patchman was right.
Oh, all right. Also, be on the lookout. Network website in the next couple of days. Myself and the old ops guy are co-writing something when it comes to the winter for the New York Mets. So that's something to look forward to. On to some of the teams that are streaking. I mentioned the Mets lost today. The Orioles. The Orioles are 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 4 in a row. They're sitting on top of the AL East. That's a good team. I'm going to get into them in a little bit because they got a really good really big series coming up this week. How about the Blue Jays? Let's give some love to the Blue Jays. And they deserve it because they went into Fenway Park and they swept the Boston Red Sox. And they beat them pretty darn good, too. So they go in there. Davis Schneider, who they called up, is the first player in MLB history with 9 hits and 2 homers in their first 3 games. And then this is from Sarah Langs. Davis Schneider's 9 hits are tied for the most in a player's first 3 career games since 1901 with Coker triplet in 1938. I do not know if the old ops guy knows who that is or not, but let's give some credit to the Blue Jays. They're 7.5 out in the AL East, but they're holding on to that last wild card spot, and they put some distance between themselves and the Red Sox here. And this is the team, listen, this was the team I thought would win the American League before the season. But they beat up on the Red Sox. They're going to go to Cleveland and play a Guardians team that may not have Jose Ramirez before they go and play the Cubbies. Give the Blue Jays a lot of credit here. They've played very well. They've had some injuries, but this is a team long term. I think the American League has 3 or 4 teams that can win it, and the Blue Jays are in that conversation. How about the Seattle Mariners? 8-2 in their last 10. They've won 5 in a row, and they just went into Anaheim and swept the Los Angeles Shohei Ohtanis in 4 games. They're young. They can pitch. And they've gotten some timely hits from guys like Julio Rodriguez, Teoscar Hernandez, Eugenio Suarez. This is a good team Scott Service has. They've put themselves now 2.5 out in the American League wild card situation. And they're going to start a 2-game set with the Padres on Tuesday before the Orioles come in this weekend, and then they go to Kansas City before a major series with the Astros. So the Mariners are coming alive. Flip side of that, the Angels. And here's the part. The Angels have lost 6 in a row. They're 2-8 in their last 10. They're now 7 out in the wild card. I get it. You wanted to go all in to convince Ohtani to stay. I think that's a mistake. And I thought it was a mistake at the time. This just isn't a great baseball team. And it's hampered by the fact that Mike Trout's not healthy. They have some other issues. Tough look for the Angels. They're going to have to turn this around quickly. And it doesn't get easier. They're just coming off a tough road trip with the Braves and playing the Braves, and then they played the Mariners. Now they're playing the Giants before they go to Houston, Texas. Let me phrase that better. Houston and then Texas, because Houston is in Texas. Geography lessons with Rifkin. And then they come home to play the Rays after that. So on to the National League. I would say the Giants, but they just lost 2 in a row to the Oakland A's, so they don't count as a team. Does anyone want to win the NL Central, though? Like, let's talk NL Central for a second.
Go
Go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna say, hey, how about them Nats? Got a nice sweep over the Reds.
I'm gonna bring it up with the NL Central.
All right.
So NL Central, the Brewers are 3-7 in their last 10, and then there's a tie for second place. The Reds, who have lost 6 in a row, also 3-7 in their last 10. And they just got swept by Patch's Nats. Somewhere Ryan Zimmerman is very happy. But they're tied with the Chicago Cubs. And how about those Cubbies? Let's give the Cubbies some love.
Go Cubs, go. Go Cubs, go. Hey, Chicago.
Have you been to Wrigley? I've never been.
No, I've never been. I just know the jingle from TikTok.
So how about this for the Cubs? They beat the Braves today. They take 2 of 3 from the Braves. They won their 6th straight series. They've won 13 of their last 16 games. They're 7-3 in their last 10. Listen, I'll be the one who says it. I thought early in the year, the manager of the year race in the National League was Skip Schumacher, Torey Lovello, David Bell. David Ross has shot up the food chain. Done a great job. Marcus Stroman, who had a terrible month, is on the injured list. Justin Steele's been fantastic. But they hit Cody Bellinger, Ian Happ. These guys hit. And by the way, Cody Bellinger, who signed a 1-year deal, extend that guy. They didn't want to trade him because they were rolling. They made the right call. Now you got to extend him because him in Chicago has been a godsend. Dansby Swanson's been really good. The best Swanson since Joe Swanson. This team is for real. And they have a top 3 in the rotation. Stroman, Justin Steele, Kyle Hendricks. It's as good as any 3 you can match in the National League. The Diamondbacks have lost 6 in a row, 2-8. They're starting to fade. And that's a tough pill to swallow, but it's a young team still around. The Marlins have also faded along with the Reds. But the Giants, Phillies, and Cubs right now are the wild cards with the Reds, Marlins, the Diamondbacks, and the Padres hanging around. I'll say this, though. Listen, everyone wants me to bag on the Mets, and I did it before. The Mets are only 7.5 out of that last wild card spot. Crazier things have happened.
Yes, they have.
Yeah. People listen to this show. Crazy thing.
I agree.
So that's just some of the stuff that's going on in the standings. So on to the week ahead. We got a couple of things to look ahead to this week. Marlins Reds has a big fight feel for wild card implications. Both teams are not playing well, but a lot of young talent on display in Cincinnati. Then we got a big one in the American League. You got the Astros and the Orioles. I said it. The Orioles, this is a big series for. You want to prove you belong? You take 2 of 3 from this Astros team who just split 4 with the Yankees. And that signals to us you're here. Blue Jays, Guardians hanging on by a thread. The Blue Jays are starting to roll, but that's a big one, too, in the American League wild card conversation. Giants, Angels, both teams. The Angels scuffling, the Giants were playing well till they lost 2 of 3 to the A's. Padres, Mariners, huge playoff implications there. I'd say Cubs, Mets, but that has 0 implications on the Mets. But those are the big ones of the week. The weekend series will be covered on the next edition of BATTER. But before we go, Patch, anything you would like to add?
You know what? It's time to have them in baseball. Each person gets 1 swing. Let fights happen in baseball. You know what? Just let it just like in hockey. You let them grab each other's jersey, let them swing each, 1 punch each, and that's it. Air it out.
Air it out. Well, you know what? And the person who plays the music has to play the song "Why Can't We Be Friends?"
And yes, and then that's after the fight's over. and then a chant of "Hug It Out" ensues.
Oh my God. All right.
Well, other than that, no, I got nothing.
That'll do it for this edition of Batter Up. Follow us on the socials. I'm still going to call Twitter, not X. Take that, Elon. That's me rebelling. Follow us at S Insanity Real. We're also on Facebook. Go to the website, www.thesportsinsanitynetwork.com for great blogs, planes, trains, and automobiles. Hang out with us on the YouTube. We got blogs on there, fun batter ups, things like that. But until next time, for the Patchman, I'm Mike Griffin. Thank you for listening to Batter Up, sponsored by Halpern's Cards and Collectibles here on the Sports Insanity Network. Everyone, enjoy the rest of your Sunday and enjoy the week ahead. We'll talk to you next.